Welcome to The Accountant That Builds. I'm your host, Shannon Smit, and today we have a very special guest with us, Sharon McClafferty, CEO of Slipstream Business Coaching. Sharon, it's great to have you here.
Hi, Shannon. Fantastic to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Sharon, I've known you for many years now, but for our listeners, could you start by sharing a bit about your background and journey and how you became a leading coach for business leaders?
My background, Shannon, was I did the high school thing. I went and did a business degree at university. I started a business law degree and probably made the mistake of traveling prior to university. So then looking down the barrel of a 5-year double degree became unsuitable for the life I wanted to live at the time. So I just stuck with business, and I went for all of the grad roles and got a number of offers on the sort of Pfizer and Combank grad roles. But at the time, I took a role in events at a bowling bar, which there was one of those bowling bars, but that business is now called Fun Lab, and they have 42 venues in Australia, and they're launching another 250 in the US. So I actually ended up being in the right place at the right time with the right leaders. And I launched a venue with my own liquor license at the age of 22. I hired 40 people and managed the ROI on that build and launch. And straight after running a bar and a bowling alley, I went to London and worked for Deloitte UK in project management. So by 23, I was sitting on the Strand, largely doing really similar projects, funnily enough, to having, a liquor license and a bowling bar, to then working at Deloitte. All it is getting the right people in the room, making sure there are deadlines, making sure people are delivering what they say they're going to deliver in the timeframes. And after a year at Deloitte, which, if I'm really honest, was a little slow, there's 12,000 people. There was 12,000 people at Deloitte UK at the time, and it was very corporate. And I was used to getting things done a little bit faster than that structure allowed. So I ended up sitting on a trading floor for a Scandinavian investment bank,
Wow, lots of
pre-GFC.
changes.
Yeah. It was more about finding my people and my speed. So I did better part of 5 years working for a Scandinavian investment bank, with offices all around the world. And my team, I had a team of 15 people across 5 countries. So it was a really big life, but I decided, potentially much like you, I wanted to have children, and the life I had built was not conducive to being a mum. So I moved back to Australia, and I ended up working for someone who coached in accounting firms. And I'm not a coach. I have never been a coach, and I will never be a coach. But when his coaching business shut down because he was really interested in technology rather than coaching, there was just a really obvious gap in the market for a professional option. And so 8 years ago, along with a business partner, we started Slipstream Group. And it really was designed to be the premium supplier of coaching and consulting to accounting and financial planning businesses in Australia.
Well, I can speak from my own experience. I think you did tick that box. I think you did actually achieve that goal. But I guess in looking at and some of the things you've even talked about now with your background, but can you discuss how a great team starts, kind of with the leader's willingness to invest in themselves and upskill and, setting that stage? How do these actions influence the team dynamics from your experience?
I have worked, and certainly earlier in my career, I worked under some poor leaders. Not never for long, because I just wouldn't be part of that. And I think I have actually been influenced by being led by people who weren't growing and weren't investing in themselves, and didn't have that self-awareness, and potentially lack some empathy along the way. So I probably learned a bit about what not to do by being the guinea pig who was led. And now I probably swing the other way, in that I have too many mentors and advisors and external people that I call upon for their advice. There was a quote I read years ago, which, one of those things you can't get out of your head, even though I'd love to. But it was basically that if you are, as a leader, if you are not doubling your capability every 3 years, then you should really question whether it's time to give that hat to someone else.
Wow, I actually have never heard that one before, but that is actually really relevant, really relevant. And it's interesting when you talk about the leadership and the skills of learning from those. Sometimes we overlook what people do well, potentially. It's easier to see what they don't do well, but from that, you can actually take what they didn't do well and actually fix it, I guess, and train it, change it. I guess in talking about some of that, and obviously the training side of things, can you kind of highlight a bit about the training and development in your organization, and also how that links with some of the, some of those that you're coaching, and talking about the training and development of the leaders?
I won't stand here and say that we have a robust training and development organization or plan internally for our team. Now, I know that you do, and certainly I know lots of other businesses that have a much more structured training and development process than we do. We are a little bit more organic. Everyone in this business can self-identify training that they would like. And we have never once said no to anyone's request. So if they want to go to a particular conference on a subject that they can justify in this business, there is a very high likelihood we will say yes. Internally, we try and do training where people, spend half a day in each other's jobs. And that is about getting to know what the other person does, but also giving more context to your day job. And what that looks like in practice. So we've got 8 coaches here, and they all have EAs. And rather than just the, client's experience person or executive assistant kind of doing their job, well, they're now actually attending meetings with clients over, 3-year strategy development. So they'll be in the room for half the day when the client is talking about, the future owners or the future strategy of the business. And that's just been profoundly useful for their roles. They understand what goes on in those rooms now in a way that they didn't before actually being a fly on the wall. So yeah, we don't have a very formal learning and development structure, although my business manager will hopefully he'll probably correct me on that to say that it is fairly formal. But in my opinion, from where I sit,
it's always evolving. And even, I guess, that kind of training that you're talking about, that on the job, there's actually going to different training courses and you want to get value out of that. But that on the job training, I think sometimes people forget about bringing people into those meetings. They learn more in a meeting and understand and get the context around it. And actually, I guess it's a really good point, because that's really an enabler, isn't it? Because now those EAs and client service managers will actually probably prompt the coaches, and really help reduce their workload, because they can take on a bit more. So, and it empowers them as well.
And I think preparing for those meetings, there's often quite a lot of pre-work that we ask our clients to do. And it invariably sits on the client manager's desk to chase up that pre-work, and seeing how critical that is to the outcome of that meeting has just changed their willingness to really go quite hard and say, listen, we would rather delay that discussion than proceed without the pre-work done.
I have been on the recipient of that. I've been a bit slow on that, but it is true. It frustrates me when clients don't do the pre-work. So I do appreciate that, because it does make the meeting a lot better. You mentioned actually before about the great team starts with the leader, and obviously you had, your willingness also to invest in yourself, upskilling and all of that. Can you share, I guess, in linking that through that the leadership, you talked about the influence of those that were negative leaders, but how the leadership can influence like workplace culture, and how do you see that in your business, but also in other businesses that you coach, and just how that leadership influence on the workplace culture?
Arguably, a leader actually only has 2 jobs, which is one is to set the strategy and the plan, and the other is to build the team and the culture to execute that strategy. So we think that both of those things are quite deliberate responsibilities of the leader. And certainly we go into businesses where that it's vaporware. There just is no. So of course there's a culture. There is a culture in a business, whether you like it or not, whether you've done anything about it or not, the culture exists. So yeah, it is the leader's job to build that culture and build the team to execute it. And funnily enough, when we go into a business with a fantastic culture but no strategy, generally those businesses are doing a lot better than the businesses that have an established strategy but a poor culture. So that saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast, we see that play out all the time. So yeah, with a good culture, you can actually achieve quite a lot and quite good results, even with a poor strategy.
And another one, actually, I wanted to talk to you a bit about how external coaching. I mean, I'm often saying to my clients, and I will be working with them and keeping them accountable. And I know when we first spoke, and you said, well, you're running a very successful business, and what is it that you're wanting to get out of it? And from my experience, my business has done even better. I love that sounding board. But what are you seeing with the benefits that your clients are getting out of having that external coaching, and having that person, your coaches are all I guess all the coaches that coach from Slipstream have all run their own practices and successfully exited their practices, and now they're actually guiding. So what are some of the things that you're seeing around the external coaching, and why would a business want to look at that? Why would a small business consider external coaching?
So we work with 90 firms around Australia right now. We are looking to double in the next 3 years, and it's taken me 8 years to build a business that I'm comfortable that by growing from here, we won't compromise the results of our clients. So I've always been unwavering that our primary reason for being is to help our clients get the results that they want to achieve. And so we haven't grown too quickly because I never wanted to test that. So we're now in a position where we've actually built the infrastructure such that we can grow without and confident that we can maintain or improve the results for our clients. What people are looking for when they engage us is really varied. So that we're not a education business that says, okay, in year 1, you achieve these things. In year 2, we're going to roll out these projects. We work with people where they are today, and we understand what they want 3 years from now, and we'll only work on projects in line with that journey, which is why when we start talking to someone like yourself, one of our questions is, well, why? Why would you engage a coach? Because if we can't articulate what you want out of that process, then we're destined not to achieve it. So It's really important that people can articulate what they want. But Shannon, you're a fantastic example. With or without us, you will be successful. Right? That is just the reality. And our client base, that's really true across our client base. Whether they engage us or not, they will be successful. So I think the main value we add is taking what would otherwise have taken 5, 6, 7 years and getting it done in 2 or 3. And probably it's a bit more fun because you're around other people at your capability. So it's a bit more fun. There's certainly less trial and error. Probably less investment because we can say, hey, nope, that's a dry gully, don't go over there. But we work with really clever people, quite motivated people who are going to achieve good things with or without us. So I just think our real value is making that happen with more certainty and in a faster time frame.
Yeah, I think that's right. If I see clients that are engaging in the coaching, they do, they usually the ones that put their hands up for coaching are ones that actually have identified that they want that accountability, they want that support, but they're actually running great businesses. But like you say, they do. All of my clients that we work with on a regular basis, whether it be monthly or quarterly, we're setting 3-year goals, we're setting 5-year goals, and we're smashing the 5 years in 3.
Yeah.
So
It's
it
identical.
goes without saying. It just it keeps them. And I think that's the bit that, is that accountability that you can be running a successful business. And I guess when it comes down to, what is success? Success isn't always just about growth. It isn't always about, is it more money? It could be just actually more time. Could be more time to the owner, could be systemizing. There's a number of different aspects as well.
I think it's probably 50-50 with the people we engage.
Mm.
50% want a better business and
Yep.
50% want a better life.
Yeah. And tell me a bit about we talked about the culture, we talk about the team and as well. And I know that you're a big fan of the disc profiling, just like I am. Talk to me a bit about what the impact of or why you would look at doing, say, a disc profiling and understanding the communication style within your team and the benefits and how you're seeing it work in different businesses. What people would get benefit out of that.
So at Slipstream, we don't use disc. We use something called instinctive drives, but it's really there's probably 46 of those on the market, and 40 of them are really good. So whichever one you subscribe to, I think will add value. There is just simply no way I could lead this team or run this business without those profiles. Like that is how important they are. We would never hire anyone without doing their profile. I often joke to new team members that because we have all of ours up on the wall, so you can just see them in every single day. I always joke to new team members that this is the way that we will each uniquely annoy each other.
That's a good way to put it.
So we all have our quirks and strengths and weaknesses, and so for example, and it's also incredibly important to know your own. So one of my biggest drivers is verify, which means I want all the data. I want it to be accurate. I don't want to see the result. I want to see the workings. I want to see the comparisons. I want to see the process you got to. Now that actually makes me a terrible manager. So if I keep turning that instinct, if I just keep letting that run wild, I can actually be a really poor people manager. So knowing that my instinct is to verify all information, I now know that there are times in which that instinct serves me really well in business, but there are other times where I need to just let it go and trust that my really capable team member has done the work rather than me asking to see the work. So just knowing yourself is critical. But if there's ever a communication breakdown between two people in my business, I can stand at that wall and see really clearly how that happened. So I think one of the biggest things that DISC or any of those profiles gives a business is language to discuss how we're different. Rather than
everyone's strengths,
Yep. Rather than say, hey, you write really long emails and they annoy me, you actually have language to say, well, you are wired like this. That is why, we're different. And so, yes, we love it, particularly when multi-partner firms who are having partnership issues go through that process. That's just every time we've done it, the only question we ask ourselves is, why don't we do more of this?
Yes. Yeah. We do that in the business as well. And I just like it is playing to everyone's strengths. It is actually working out how to best communicate. And I spend then time trying to work out what my client's profiling is. How do I best communicate with that client so that when they may get the same, I may have 3 clients that get the same information, but they may interpret it differently or react to it differently. So how can we play with that to get the right reaction out there?
Could you imagine leading your team without that information?
No, I couldn't. No, I actually couldn't. I play to each person's strengths because I know the different profiles and I know how people are going to react to being given work in a certain way. So let me play to their strengths so that they receive it and they're calm and it works for them and I get the best out of them, so it's really, it is a good way of actually going back to your culture, getting the right culture, getting the way the team's communicating and working together. I guess one of the aspects, I guess, on coaching, and maybe if you can talk a little bit about that, is just the importance around a coach or a mentor, and I guess the ability to ask the tough questions. I mean, how do you think these questions challenge, how do these questions challenge assumptions and encourage, clients to think differently? What is it that you think the benefit for the business on that is? When a business I come to you, yourself or Michael and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. can you maybe talk about some of your experiences with, or even the differences you've made with some businesses on being able to challenge them and highlight things that they may not have considered?
So one of our values here at Slipstream, Shannon, is to be bold. And the way that is actually translated, so the words we use to describe that, is to say the things and ask the questions that will get us fired. So we are not the organization to hire if you want a yes person in your corner. And lots of people want that. Like lots of people want just the person, the ego play in their corner going, you're wonderful, keep going. That is not us. And one of the reasons that is one of our values is because the coaching and consulting game globally is full of people who, have a vested interest in retaining the engagement. So I just wanted to right up front say that's not who we are. And when we and that goes to, we absolutely have coaches who have said the thing that has ended the engagement. I mean, I think the record for that was 2 hours in the initial meeting with a client who would have otherwise engaged us for 5 years. But in the initial meeting, the coach said, fantastic. As soon as you are ready to fire your father, we should get started.
That's a tough one, but
it's really tough, but
it had to be said.
Don't come to us saying, I want my profit margin to be in the high 30s, but I pay my father $200,000 to do nothing. So we can't accept that engagement and not call out the elephant in the room. Now, sometimes us being, bold and honest, and we come from a place of, we want good things for our clients. So we come from a place of, we're going to tell you this because clearly no one else is, or because it appears to us that you haven't factored this in. So a really recent story from the last 24 hours is we have a client who is so passionate about business and so passionate about his client base to the point where he doesn't call them clients. He says, we look after 100 families. But he also is really excited by, people and opportunities. So, he's met a potential team member. The potential team member has said, well, yeah, I'd love to jump ship from where I am and I can do all these amazing things for your business. And I'm currently on a package of, $300,000 to $400,000, but I'd be prepared to move over. And that client's called the coach and said, wow, I've got this superstar that I have this potential to hire. Now, there was no job on that org chart for the superstar. So we were going to design a job because he'd ran into someone that he thought was pretty amazing. And so to have the coach say, yeah, no, I'm not going to interview that person. I'm not going to help you with that interview until you design a job. We put that job out to market. We'll go through all of the resumes. We'll get down to 3. And when you choose the one that is going to achieve the outcome you need to on your business plan. So sometimes it is our job to put a pin in excitement.
Yeah, I was just going to say you burst the bubble, like boom. Yeah.
But I mean, and I'm absolutely that guy. Like I am super passionate. I love people. I meet people and I can see how they would be wonderful. I could see how I could cash flow them into my business. But I have 2 mentors and I engage 2 different coaching businesses. And I'm really grateful when they say, hey, wait a minute, you're doing this at the expense of what?
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about too is also the way in which you're customizing your approach to the way in which you're coaching with different people as well. And I mean, how do you ensure also when you're working with clients on that you have a clear understanding of the client's business needs and goals? What is it that you do to be able to really pick that out of the client, I guess?
I don't think that is static. So in our experience, that's actually a really movable feast. Often when we take a business on, their goals are not this. I'm just thoroughly dissatisfied with the present. So we have a robust process to go through, all sorts of fact finds and conversations around what people want. But the reality is, once we fix the things that are currently causing them stress, then we actually need to go through that process again, because now we actually get to design the future you want. So at first it's just not the present. And then after about 12 months, then it starts to get really exciting because we've fixed fix the issues and we get to actually plan for the future. So I think it's easier to, plan this ideal future if the house isn't burning. So we constantly, and particularly for multi-partner firms, because it's not just that one person's version of the future is changing constantly, but with multi-partner firms, you might have 6 people's versions of the future changing and not necessarily changing in the same direction. So we have a process of, having really honest conversations as a group, which is one thing I think an external person can bring to the table. I mean, you would do this all the time with your clients where there is multi-owners. And even if it's a family business, like maybe more so if it's a family business, they sometimes are not honest with each other. And they don't talk about the hard things. So having an external person in the room to intelligently raise, hey, here's this tough thing that you guys don't want to talk about, but we need to talk about. So I think that's just never static. Anyone's goals and future, the idea that we're going to, and I think some financial planners can really get stuck in this trap, and they think about their clients, future goals during their onboarding. And you go, no, every financial planning meeting is a planning meeting. So I think it's a bit of a trap if you think about people's goals as an onboarding conversation.
And so, I mean, I guess everything we've gone through today, and why I was keen to get you to chat with some of our listeners is, and I know that you are coaching financial planners and accountants like myself. It's really helped my business as well. But it's really a lot of those different key aspects of having that person accountable. You can be a successful business, but having that person externally accountable to ask those tough questions for you, keeping that focus on the continuous learning and how can you upskill people as well within your business, and understand communication and culture are really key. Is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with as we finish up?
Probably just another quote that's currently annoying me, and I'd love your feedback on it. I pick up these little things and I think, I wish I didn't read that. The one that's annoying me at the moment is the person with the lowest tolerance for mediocrity should be the leader.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I think that is definitely true in the smart business solutions world. And it's certainly true in the Slipstream world. And so I actually have when I'm welcoming new team members, I have a slide that explains why I care so much, essentially. So I just have to explain it to new people. This is why I care so much. And how that sometimes plays out is that I might walk into a room and say, this isn't good enough. But it comes from a place of love and care. And I have this really low tolerance for mediocrity. But yes,
I hear you. Yes, I hear you. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really great to hear your insight. I've got a lot of benefit myself. I think it's great for our listeners to understand that, we have people that look at my business and, and see what my business is doing, but every business can benefit from an external party in working with them and coaching them through and keeping them accountable and keeping them on their toes and, being that person that asks the tough questions. So thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. We'll wrap that up. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shannon.